Alright, so I came across another Jedediah video that just warmed my soul, warmed my heart. I have to show this to you.
Who controls access to sex, men or women?
Women.
Yeah, woman.
Woman, obviously.
Yeah, so I would say hookup culture, if we want to see hookup culture stop, because women kind of control when sex happens, so do you have anyone to blame but yourselves on that one? Do you know? Thoughts? Okay, crickets, here we go. Okay, so, and also, who controls access to sex?
Okay, did you stage that?
Men or
That's
women?
too beautifully executed for you not to have staged it in some way.
Listen, I swear to God. No, listen, I was bored out of my mind at that point because it was just dealing with these incessant droning of these mindless zombies that I was just like looking at the camera and I was like looking at the chat. I was like, you see the red pill? You see the red pill? Take the red pill.
Ah, yes, you gotta love when these females aren't hiding on social media or making videos or whatever on TikTok, and they're forced to face reality dead on. We're talking, they got so hard hit with reality that it knocked the wind right out of them. They had no words, no counter reaction. They couldn't think of anything, no matter how feministic they were, no matter how indoctrinated they were with their extremism of misandry and feminism and gynocentrism. Not one of them could counter that, because they know that he was absolutely right. He cornered them right all together in a big group, right up against the wall there. And then loaded up the tank with lots of truth, facts, and reality, and then shot that bitch right at him, and boom! Blown them all up with facts, truth, and reality. Oh, I love it. They couldn't think of even any irrational, illogical counters. They couldn't even think of, because they were that well placed, and then they were that well hit. God, I fucking love it. They had no problem answering, about the whole women control sex part, because we totally control sex. Oh yeah, being all high and mighty about it too. And so that, people, is what happens when females are forced to hold accountability. They have nothing to say. They literally cannot think of any rebuttal to say. No counter argument, completely speechless. And there's a reason for that. Because they are being forced, and I mean quite literally intellectually forced, to accept the fact that they are entirely, unquestionably to blame. They are, therefore, being backed in the corner by their own words, no less, which is my favorite part of that, into accepting the fact that they are to be held accountable. Oh yeah, accountability. Being held responsible and accountable. Females? Today's era? What's that? Nah, we don't know what that is in today's world. But in this very rare occurrence, one singular male was able to find a way to back them in the corner where they couldn't find a way out. There's no feministic, gynocentric excuse that they could have used or thought of to get themselves out of that corner. And that's exactly what happens. Because, wouldn't you know it, even though they had everything against them and every reason to accept the fact that they are the reason to blame for hookup culture and so on and so forth, They wouldn't even fess up to it verbally. That's how bad this is when it comes to females and accountability and responsibility. Instead of, just saying, you know what? Yeah, I am held accountable for that. I am responsible for this or that. Instead, they'll just, if they can't find a way to blame men, if they can't find a way to, wiggle their way out of it or find some sort of feministic, extremist excuse or whatever to exert themselves from responsibility and accountability, they'll just not say one goddamn thing at all. They'll just say nothing. They'll just sit there and hope to God that they can cute their way out of a situation or flirt their way out or, some sort of manipulation. But in this case, they weren't going to get that either. So all they were left to do was sit there and look stupid. In silence, no less. And it didn't shock me at all. I mean, as absolutely fucking hilarious as that was, and how it's so gratifying to see that finally happened to females, especially a group of them, it's also very telling of just how bad gynocentrism and feminism is today. And this is in part also why these feminists and why all these females need their echo chambers and groupthink mentality. Because when you are not a part of that groupthink, when you aren't engaging in echo chamber bullshit, that's what happens. Reality hits them. They are forced to deal with the real world. Because they all love to live in this fantasy world of delusion and grandioseness, that they're just so untouchable, that they're always right. They do nothing wrong. They're the perfect gender. This flat out egregious mentality that they're just the superior everything and men are to blame for everything, and so they can't be held accountable for anything. They can't be held responsible for anything, no matter how egregious it is. Whether they do it themselves or their own gender does it, someone of their own female gender. It doesn't matter. It's always somehow men's fault. It's always everyone else's fault except for their own. So now they're having to deal with the fact that they can't find any way to blame men. They can't weasel their way out of it. There's no flirting their way and manipulating out of it. They just have to deal with what's called the real world and facts, truth, and reality. Obviously, they didn't like that very much, given their reactions. But the best part is they did it to themselves. They worded themselves into a corner. So satisfying, but also so very terrifying, because this literally goes to show everything that I've been saying in my videos concerning females is so spot on and accurate. It's scary. This is what happens when females are spoiled by feminism and gynocentrism. This is the unfortunate result, is females are grown into this culture and world and society with this whole, I'm the best and everyone else, especially men, are shit. And, well, when you live in delusional fantasy and self-grandioseness for so long, you become out of touch with reality. So when faced with reality, there's nothing to be said. You can't think of anything to say. And that's for a very good reason, too. Because you can't accept what's being presented to you. You cannot accept what's being presented to you. It's called cognitive dissonance. Instead of just fessing up and being like, you're right, we are to blame. Like any normal, logical, intellectually honest person would, when you are wrong, you own up to that shit. You're like, you know what? I fucked up. I did that. It was my fault. I'm responsible. I'm accountable. The whole 10 yards. You have integrity. You have the intellectual honesty to say that. But when you've been spoiled by feminism, gynocentrism, and you have so much misandry embedded in you, ingrained into you, that it becomes this thing where you literally have cognitive dissonance over it. The real world doesn't apply to you anymore. It's all this delusional echo chamber bullshit and regurgitated feministic agenda bullshit. And so this is just a perfect example of what happens. And it's scary to think that these females go about in their everyday life with this spoiled, rotten attitude. I don't know. But long story short, I'm glad that someone was able to capture that on camera. And another part in this too is they're young females, and so they're not these old hag harpies or anything like that too. So there's a certain amount that I can attribute to just being ignorant because they're young. They don't know the real world enough to kind of understand what's going on either. So I will give them a little bit of leeway because of that. But by no means am I trying to excuse them either. You know, it's give and take in that way. But when it came to actually accepting the responsibilities that come with being the one who controls if sex happens, they shut up immediately. Because as we all know, females have a very, very hard time with the whole accepting responsibility and being held accountable for their actions. So naturally, when it came to those two things, being held to accountability and taking responsibility, they shut up real fucking quick. God, I love it. That kind of shit just warms my heart. It feeds my soul. Such quality. Ugh. I can't even. I just can't even. Oh, it feels great. I had to share that pleasure video with you. That was fucking incredible. It's just another demonstration of idiocy, naivety, ignorance of these feministic, feminazi, gynocentric misandrists, and just how they are on the food chain. They're just low-life losers. I love it. No wonder they hate men. They're too stupid to know anything other than that. Oh yeah. Get them off their TikToks and their Facebooks and all them other fucking social medias and watch them crumple when in a formal environment. God, it's great. I love this so much. I could go on forever, quite frankly, but I'm just gonna leave it at that because it's just like, fuck yeah. I mean, not one of them could come up with anything, not even a way to somehow blame men for it. It was just like perfect. It was wonderful. Alright, enough gushing. Until next time. Until next time.